ਆਹੋ, ਉਹੀ ਵੇਖਾਂਗਾ ਮੈਂ, ਕੁਛ ਨਾ ਕੁਛ ਸੋਲੂਸ਼ਨ ਕੱਢਾਂਗੇ ਹੀ। ਬਿਲਕੁਲ, ਉਹ ਫਿਰ ਪੀਆਰ ਉਧਰੋਂ ਸੌਖੀ ਮਿਲ ਜਾਣੀ ਆ। ਹੂੰ, ਉਧਰ ਨਾਲੇ ਪਤਾ ਕੀ ਆ, ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਬੜੇ ਆ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਚੰਨ ਵੀ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ, ਰੋਬਨ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਚਲੋ ਉੱਧਰ ਚੱਲ ਜਾਣਾ ਵਾ। ਤੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਫਰੈਂਡ ਸਰਕਲ ਵੀ ਬੜਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਉੱਥੇ, ਲਗਭਗ ਸਾਰਾ ਫਰੈਂਡ ਸਰਕਲ ਹੈਗਾ ਉੱਥੇ। ਹਾਂਜੀ ਹਾਂਜੀ। ਹਾਂ ਹਾਂ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਦੇਖਾਂਗੇ, ਕੁਛ ਨਾ ਕੁਛ ਥੋੜਾ ਹੀ ਹੱਲ ਕੱਢਾਂਗੇ। ਹੂੰ। ਨਹੀਂ, ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਨਾ ਇੱਥੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ, ਮੈਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ ਪਤਾ ਥੋੜਾ ਬਹੁਤਾ ਕਾਫੀ। ਹਾਂ, ਬਾਕੀ ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ, ਅਜੇ ਕਰਦੇ ਸਟੱਡੀ ਵੱਲ, ਬਾਅਦ ਚ ਵੇਖਾਂਗੇ ਕੀ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈਗਾ। ਹੂੰ, ਮੇਰੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਆਪਣੇ 2 ਸਾਲ ਦੀ, MBA ਹੈ। ਹਾਂ, ਵਰਕ ਪਰਮਿਟ ਜਾਂ ਸਾਲ ਸਾਲ ਦਾ ਐਕਸਟੈਂਡ ਕਰਾਉਣਾ ਪੈਣਾ। ਪੀਆਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਅਪਲਾਈ ਨਾ, ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਡਿਫਿਕਲਟ ਆ ਪ੍ਰੋਸੈਸ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਦਾ। ਸਪਾਂਸਰ ਕਰੂਗਾ ਕੋਈ ਤਾਂ, ਜਾਂ ਅਦਰਵਾਈਜ਼ ਨਹੀਂ। ਹੂੰ। ਆਹੋ, ਚਲੋ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ।
So free, can you hear me? Yesterday, a couple people, huh? All right, any questions from last week or any of the previous week or, questions about work, upcoming work, past work? Just questions in general. No? Everybody good? Good. All right, so we are week 4, halfway through. So we're looking good. Everybody's doing pretty well in the class, so I'm pretty excited about that. And, you guys have been really putting some good quality work in, so I appreciate it. Good efforts on the citing and the references, we're getting there, okay, we're close. All right, so we keep hacking away at it, and, we'll get it, we'll be experts before class is over, okay? All right, so this week we're gonna talk about recruiting and talent management, all right? One of the bigger functional areas of HR and one of the major components of any successful organization, all right? So companies are always in the search for quality talent, all right? Especially if you have a job market that we have now that's pretty hot and pretty good, it's pretty strong. And so when you have a strong job market, the employee, not the employee, the candidate or the, people trying to get employed have the upper hand because they have a lot of options. Okay, so there's a lot of options out there. It's really incumbent upon the companies to really get out there and showcase themselves, as the company that you want to work for. Now, there's some companies there's always going to be a line to work for the company, right? Google, Apple, Coke, Pep, all these, Fortune 500 companies. Most of them have lines. There's no shortage of quality talent. All right, they're getting all the Harvards and all the Yales and all the Princeton guys. Okay, but there's only so many spots at Google and Microsoft and those companies, right? And a lot of them are really tech heavy for the most part. But still, the market itself is pretty hot. And even now, if you look at the economy, one of the issues we've been having is inflation, right? But we can't get inflation down, really. It's gone down a bit, right? But we can't get inflation down, or it's kind of a paradox, or that the job market is strong, but we have high inflation, right? And so those two normally don't go together in most cases. But one of the reasons we do have inflation is, one, of course, we have a lot of money to spend when people haven't saved their money from COVID and haven't done anything, all right? And secondly, we have a strong job market, which means that people are going to work and they have more money to spend, all right? And so if you have more money to spend, you contribute more to the economy, but then the companies that you're buying stuff from, right, they realize like you have more money to spend. So guess what? We're gonna raise the prices, right? But if you raise the prices, that means I gotta raise the prices. That means everybody down the chain has to raise their prices because I have to keep up with the cost of doing business based on the market, right? And so then you have this thing with inflation, and you have a strong job market, which isn't necessarily slowing down anytime soon, right? It's looking pretty good. If you want a job, for the most part, you can, hey, what's going on? Come on, guy. If you want a job, for the most part, you can get one, especially if it's tech. Tech in the healthcare industry always plenty of work going around, okay? So no need to worry too much about that, right? But with all that said, how do we get that talent in, right? And then once we get them in, how do we manage them, right? How do we keep them? Because that's really the key, is about keeping the employees, especially now with everybody having gone through COVID, everybody got a taste of working from home, and now it's hard to get people back into the office, okay? Microsoft is having that problem, Uber's having the problem of getting people back in the office. Who else? Tesla, Disney is having an issue with getting people back in the office, to the point with Starbucks. they're mandating now that people come back to the office within the next 30 days, right? And so it's gonna be really interesting to see what happens to labor market, because a lot of people have realized like they don't need to go to work. They could live off of what they're making, working part-time or working, gig job, right? Driving Uber or delivering stuff or working from home on a website, right? They can do a lot of things at home and make enough money. Because of COVID, people just kind of realize like, I don't need to do all the things I thought I needed to do. I can save my money. I don't need to live up here. I can live down here, because at the end of the day, the things that really count for most folks are typically not free, but they're generally low cost, right? You want to hang out with your family, your friends, and have experiences that, you can go to the beach free for the most part, all right? I can go walk around, go to whatever park for free. I can hang out with my girlfriend for free, okay? Sometimes she makes me pay, but, but she doesn't like me too much, so that's okay. But either way, right? But, there's a real battle for recruiting. And then as we start to get more globalized now, it becomes more of a, bigger contest. And okay, now I need to get the talent, but I have to worry about not only domestic talent, I have to worry about international talent now. Okay. And how do I tap into that? Because companies that are here, and certain companies and industries have really tapped into it, right? The tech industry has pretty much tapped into international markets as far as resourcing people, right? Because a lot of the other countries are a little more advanced or ahead of us as far as tech goes, right? Engineers and scientists and that kind of thing. So the United States has always been one to kind of tap into different countries to get that resource. The medical field also, I think, is one of those fields, especially when you're talking about in a rural or, kind of isolated area. They kind of tap into the certain programs I know of in the Midwest, that they have doctors that they sponsor specifically visas to come over from India, to come over from Korea, to come over from Turkey, to come to the United States and live in like Iowa, Idaho, and that's the doctor there for, a pretty large area, right? But they need that specialist in that area, right? No one wants to drive 5 hours for an ear appointment to see an audiologist or, some other kind of doctor, right? So we've been, recruiting internationally for a while, but the competition gets really stiff and it becomes harder to screen out the talent because they're not physically here. It's really hard. It's different customs and courtesies, it's different moral systems, different value systems. And so we have to kind of learn how to balance all that and bring the talent in, right? Be able to compensate them in a way that's going to attract them to come to the United States, right? Also sponsor them, right? We have the whole visa sponsorship for people that work here, the students and that kind of thing. And it goes both ways, right? People leave here, they go to, overseas assignments or they take jobs overseas. They have to be sponsored by that host country. Same thing for coming over here and be sponsored by that host country. But there's certain skill sets that the companies are looking for, globally, okay? But when we're talking about domestic, recruiting is really about having a good team that understands the market, understands the labor market, understands what it is, the goals and the mission of the company are, and making sure that we get those quality people, and then making sure those people match up to, the organizational culture that we're looking for, right, or looking to foster. And so, it's really a big deal. Most recruiting entities have a pretty good budget, all right, and they get to do a lot of different cool things. They get to go to a lot of different events, colleges and universities for job fairs and just, whatever they call them, career day. I don't know if you guys had that in your host country, right? But here in the United States, most universities, most universities have a career day or something to that effect. And depending on the size of the school, you'll have, a number of the Fortune 500 companies come, they'll set up booths.
Oh, like a job fair?
Like a job fair. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like a job fair. Yeah, kind of like a job fair. And then, they talk to anybody that comes in, all the students get dressed up and, have their resumes in hand, but it's on campus. and strictly for the students. And the companies are really trying to screen out the next group or batch of talent that they're going to, acquire, right? Because a lot of these people are sophomores and juniors in college, right? And they're looking for internships. They're looking for opportunities down the road. And so the companies come in, maybe they'll give them an internship. Maybe they'll say, hey, you know what? See us in a couple of months, or wait, if you get ready to graduate, maybe they'll even sit down and screen you right there, give you an interview right there, which I've seen. I had a friend of mine, he got interviewed, he got a job with Ford, on the spot, graduated 2 months later, and worked for Ford, the car company. So it's possible, but the recruiting effort is real, it's intense, okay, because there's a limited population of viable talent, right? Don't get it confused because you're here that you think there's a bunch of talent out there. Okay, you are in the minority. It's like I think 3% of the population have masters or we're trying to get a master's. 3%. Okay, and this class is unusual. And another statistic is that there's a lot of men in this class. All right, typically the women are the one getting the advanced degrees and preponderance of the population that make up our classes now, right? And so there's not a lot of talent out there as much as you may think, right? Especially with the way we're going as far as being tech heavy. It's not very populated, right? It's difficult to learn with that whole thing, right? I started off, you okay? Went down the wrong pipe, huh? Okay. Right. I said, don't die on us outside. When I was getting my master's in artificial intelligence and machine learning, we started off with 25 people in my cohort. When we graduated, there were 10. So only 10 of us graduated, right? And it wasn't because, they weren't smart, because most of them were engineers. I was the only non-engineer in my cohort. Most of them were engineers. It's just that the stuff's difficult. It's very hard. And then some people just get bored and realize they don't like it. Not everybody likes to code. Okay, it's not the most exciting thing to do, all right? And so all the things that take into consideration when it comes down to recruiting and trying to find a viable population and pool to pull from, right? Because the companies want to get the best talent, right? But it's really not a lot of people out there for certain jobs, all right? And it's even more, I think the healthcare profession specifically there's always a shortage to me. It always seems like it, but I never understand the whole medical school thing.
No.
I don't
My
get it.
husband went to med school and
Yeah.
the return on investment's not there.
Not there, huh?
No, even dental now, I think my education cost $217.
Mhm.
That's why I did the federal position and joined the military.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford it.
Right.
My husband, same thing, and I think this was like 580.
Yeah.
It's not there anymore.
Yeah, it's not there anymore.
I don't even know what you make your first year out of school, but you can't even afford your loans.
Yeah, I think it's 35,000 or something like that.
Ridiculous.
Yeah,
I
35,000.
mean, unless we start doing residencies and fellowships, like
Mhm.
family practice docs don't make even 100.
Yeah, they'll make 100.
How
Yeah,
do you pay so low?
yeah.
So I think that the admission is going like way down.
Mhm. Yeah, I know they have a control function in there also, where they only let a certain amount of people in the medical school every year, and it's like, why do that? There's a shortage of doctors, there's a shortage of nurses, and like, why would you do that? But
The first thing you ask me is, where do you want to live after this? Like, if you say a rural area.
Yeah.
They want it.
they want you?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
They want doctors to go to.
Oh, yeah, go over, yeah.
North Dakota or
Yeah.
Montana, they have a lot of reciprocity programs with like Montana, which is where I'm from. A bunch of schools wanted us and offered us like tuition,
Mm.
because they knew they could send us back to Montana.
And yeah,
And then the doctors for them. So
right.
It's hard. It's definitely not a career that we would repeat.
Yeah, no, it's not as glamorous as it sounds, right? Lawyers are the same thing. Well, lawyers are a little different because lawyers are actually saturated. We have too many lawyers.
Yeah.
Okay, too many lawyers, not enough work. Okay,
Mhm.
and they're going to law school and don't make it big or get into a firm. You're kind of out of luck because venture out on your own and make your own business, but it's tough. Okay, but the company's goal is really to get quality talent in so that they can keep growing the company, right? Because one of you someday may be the CEO of a major company, okay? And then you don't know, right? It's just getting your foot in the door. But that's what they're looking for. They're looking for the next CEO. They're looking for the next CFO. They're looking for the next COO, right? And it starts at the bottom. It starts at the intern level. It starts at the entry level position. But you have to screen folks out to make sure, you know, not only with the talent as far as the cognitive ability, right? But you have the people skills. You have exposure to big budgets. Are you understanding marketing? Do you understand economic systems? Okay, how do they intersect? How do politics, socioeconomics, culture, how does that all intersect? Because for some companies, it really matters how that stuff intersects, right? If you work for a apparel company, right? If you work for Reebok, Nike, Adidas, all those things matter, right? Because now you're talking about designers, you're talking about people that are coming in and wanting to understand what people want in the market. Okay, so you have to understand a lot of different things because that is the supply chain issue, right? You're a designer, great, but you can't get the supplies you want and you don't understand why. Well, you got to understand that. You have to know how the supply chain goes. Okay, so they're looking for people that can kind of intersect different areas and looking really for leaders, right? Management skills, not necessarily just technical skills, all right? You have, and I know a lot of you here, everybody here pretty much already has a degree, right? But there's a reason why you guys came for MBA specifically, because that would get your foot in the door for the administrative side of the house, right? To move up, because now you're leaving the technical side because you understand that, you know that, but there's no growth there, right? So you're gonna move to the admin side, so you can move up, right? Because now you have the business acumen and you have the technical acumen. And so those two things together are pretty dangerous, right? When you have an MBA, you understand business and you can read a P&L. Everybody know what P&L is? Except for my accountant. Profit and loss, right? Yeah, you gotta know how to read a P&L. It's one of the simplest things you have to know how to do as a leader. If you have a budget, $20 million budget, sounds like a lot, it really isn't. Okay, $20 million budget is nothing. All right, there's probably $300,000, $400,000 in here in this room. All right, so think about it in those terms. All right, we're gonna watch a quick video on Nike. It's just kind of like some interns talking about their experience and that kind of thing and why they chose Nike. So, and then we'll go into our presentation to the group. Okay. Any questions? Everybody good? All right. All right, so why do you think I showed this video? What are some of the highlights of the video? Okay.
Orders is located and what it offers.
Okay, okay, with offered, with the offer, what else?
So I could show some sense of, satisfaction.
Okay,
I think
Okay.
German.
okay, all right. All right, all those are good reasons, right? But the reason I really showed you the video is all right. Um, one of the main reasons I showed it to you is because I want you to understand that this perspective that you're hearing on the video is coming from, potential, people that are gonna work there long term, right? Right now, they're just interns, okay? But they're giving you their, kind of take on what it is that appealed to them that Nike offered them, okay? From their perspective, right? Not from Nike's perspective, right? From the people that are actually going to work there, right? So you heard, the outdoor, you heard the benefit, you heard the working environment, everything in collaboration, right? And when you get to the real workplace, there's a lot of collaboration, right? You heard all these positive things about, Nike working there, right? But a lot of that they got from the interview process, okay? These are the things that the kind of recruiters probably already told them, like, oh, when you get to Nike, this is why you should come to Portland. Anybody ever been to Portland? Portland, right, that's it. Portland's a beautiful place, right? It's a beautiful place, and people don't really think about Portland, and sometimes it kind of stops them from taking a job with Nike. Okay, I've had friends that had offers from Nike and they didn't take it because they were not familiar with Portland. But from the recruiting standpoint, that's a really good selling point, all right? To get people to come to Portland, and once you get there, you'll realize that, oh, it's actually a great place, right? And so I want you to get understanding that it's a two-way street when it comes down to recruitment and hiring, right? You're not only being interviewed, you're interviewing the company. Okay? What are they offering me? What are you giving me? Right? Do you value who I am and what I bring to the table? Okay? Is this kind of work environment going to be conducive to my growth and development? Am I going to come into a situation where I'm just a workhorse and I'm just doing things and not really learning anything else, right? Am I going to be exposed to different areas of the company, right? Because just because you get in one area of the company doesn't necessarily mean that's what you like or that you want to do, right? And that happens quite often where somebody goes in, they'll go into the HR department or marketing, and they're like, I really don't like that. And then they'll cross-section into something else, right? They'll cross-section into retail stores or actually design team or whatever the case may be, right? But the whole point is that it's a collaboration even when you're interviewing, right? It's an effort on both parts and, trying to see, do you fit with what we're looking for? And do I want to even work here, right? Do I even like the interviewer? Okay, it starts as easy as that, as early as that, okay? When you go for a job interview, do you like the interviewer? Or the panel of people that were interviewing you? Because they're part of the population that works at the company. And they will give you a good idea of what kind of people work at the company. If they come off nice and very chill and open and they're listening to you, then okay, like it's not a bad company. But they come off very gruff and kind of just talking to you a certain way. They're asking you a bunch of questions and not giving you time to answer the question, that kind of thing. So you can get a gauge as to what kind of people you're going to be working with within the company. Okay. All right. Move on. So down to recruiting, right? Has anybody ever recruited? No, they've been recruited?
person.
What's that?
In my former office,
Okay.
I was part of the process.
Oh, what do you do? What part?
So first of all, I had to present what I'm looking for, the job description.
Mhm.
Yeah. And when, after the CVs, the resumes have been sorted.
Yeah.
I did the first setup to talk to the guys.
Okay.
So after talking to the guys, the shortlisted guys,
Mm.
I paid 3 of the ones that come do it.
Yeah.
Sent to the HR guys.
Okay, all right, so you were kind of the initial guy, maybe not the canvassing guy, but definitely after they canvas, you're the person that was, kind of the screener, sort of, okay? Were you gonna say something? No? Okay, so at the end of the day, recruiting is a serious, aspect of the whole talent management piece, right? We're trying to acquire talent for the company, right? And not just anybody. The way McDonald's hires is not the same way that, I don't know, Starbucks hires. Like, it's kind of the same. It's kind of the same, right? Yeah, it's kind of the same, right? Because of the type of job it is for the most part, right? Those jobs are very much, there's high turnover, but they know that already, right? The companies know there's high turnover on everything, those jobs. But it's not the same thing as hiring for Qualcomm or for, T-Mobile or some other company, right? It's a different process, right? And so when you're looking at hiring for a little bit more, rigorous positions, you have to be more diligent in how you screen for your people, right? How you bring people in, right? How am I gonna acquire my talent, right? How am I gonna bring them in? What incentives do I need to offer, right, to bring the folks in, okay? Now, HR does the talent management piece, all right? So we're gonna acquire talent, but we do it in conjunction with all the supervisors, all the hiring managers, okay? And so HR just kind of comes in and sits down and says, hey, here's the job description, this is what we're gonna put out. But, the recruiting effort is kind of different from that, okay? Because it's actually people that go out and they do what we call canvassing, okay? CANVASSING, they canvass, all right? Anybody understand what I mean by canvas? Right? Go out and hit the streets, right? We're talking to people, we're actually going to schools, we're going to other businesses that are partners with us, we're going to, different job fairs, we're doing different things, right? That's all canvassing, because I'm trying to build up some kind of population, any population to tap into, and then I can start building my talent pool, all right? Those are the people that are actually qualified, available, ready to go. I just need to kind of filter through them to get my applicant pool. Okay, so there's 3 different pools. You got your regular labor market pool, all right? You got your, the folk that you would like to see qualified, as potential candidates that are just kind of out there for everybody. And then you have the people that you specifically want that are in your bank as far as your repository inside your company that have, applied to the company, applied to the job, and you have, kind of them just kind of sitting there, and then whenever you need somebody, kind of pull from them, okay? Because most companies will keep your resume, even if you don't hear from them, they'll keep it a year or 2. Okay, they'll keep it on file. Because they'll go to HR and say, hey, we're looking for such and such. And then HR will, all right, no problem, and then they'll pull out all the resumes that they got for that particular job. And they'll say, well, we got some candidates here, which one you want to interview, which one you want to bring in, okay? And then from there, they kind of start filtering out these folks, and they say, okay, bring these top 3 in, or these 4, wherever we decide, just bring all of them in, maybe just 10 of them or something like that, okay? All right. So, important things about our, recruiting, right? We're looking for quality, okay? There's one in consideration. I'm looking for someone who's, all right, well-rounded, has good people skills, has the technical, skills I'm looking for, has the, skills, knowledge, skills, and ability that I need, right? I'm also probably dealing with a timeline, okay? How much time do I need to fill this particular position? Some positions aren't necessarily, looking to be filled immediately, right? And so there's sometimes you see a job posting and you put application in and you send your resume in, but you don't hear anything. And then 6 months later, a year later, hey, we submitted a resume. You go, I don't remember submitting the resume. Like, it's about a year ago. The timing may be like, we don't need anybody right now. We need someone 6 months down the road, or maybe we do need somebody tomorrow, okay? So that's another consideration that we have to look at, right? We have to look at, the quantity of talent, right? And when we talk about the quantity of talent, we're really looking at the geographic area, okay? Within, a 50-mile radius, how many people do I have that are actually qualified for this job, right? What's my pool look like? Am I going to get, enough people to even be interested in this job, right? It's like, kind of like selling a house. Sometimes you just put a house on the market, it'll be there for days, months, right? Because nobody can, one, kind of afford it maybe, or two, they don't like it, whatever the case may be, right? The point is that, if you don't have that particular, candidate in your geographic location, then you have to kind of go out beyond those parameters to go find that person, okay? You may not have that skill set that you're looking for in that area, right? Or maybe there's 3 people that fit that bill, okay? Think of somebody like I have a neuro-ophthalmologist. Anybody know a neuro-ophthalmologist? You guys looking at me like, what is that?
It's a doctor.
All of that.
The brain, the eye.
Yeah, the spine, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a neurologist and an ophthalmologist, basically, combined, and he or she deals with really, what nerves and what part of the nervous system and all that affect the eyes and all that good stuff. I'm not sure all the details, but I never knew one existed till I had to go see one, right? And he was the one guy on the East Coast. Now, granted, I was in the military and he was the one guy, and you might be familiar with it. He was the one guy, Walter Reed. Yeah, Bethesda, right? And Walter Reed is a big military hospital on the East Coast. Probably, I think it might be the biggest military hospital we have. It's in Maryland, close to DC, and all that kind of stuff, right? But there was one guy, neuro-ophthalmologist, one on the whole East Coast, and they had one on the West Coast. All right. Now, granted, the military is a very small population. It's not a big group base, right? But you have 2 guys who specialize in something that's very, very technical, right? And how out of all the places to find this person, why do you think they would go into the military? Why would I not go out into the civilian sector where I can make a whole lot of money? Okay, that's what some companies are competing against. Think about it. You go in the military, everybody gets paid the same, okay, based on rank. It doesn't matter if, you did something, you work hard or not, except for doctors. It's a little different, right? They get a little extra pay, but still, they're on par with the other doctors for the most, well, it depends on your specialty, right? I think for the most part, right?
I think it's ranked still.
Yeah, no, it is
I
ranked.
think it's pretty, yeah, I think it's still rank driven.
It's still ranked given for the most
And I
part.
don't think it's that demarcation among like.
I know they get the bonuses.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
get the
different.
bonuses, right? That kind of make the difference, when it comes to pay. But all in all, everybody gets paid the same in the military based on it, right? And so how did the military attract a neuro-ophthalmologist to come into the military instead of going out into the civilian world where they could have probably made 400, 500,000, I don't know, $600,000, maybe more than that, right? The recruiting aspect, right? The benefits or the things that the military offers was probably appealing to that person, okay? To where, hey, I get my school loans paid off, I have an established career, it's not a bad life once you get used to it, okay? I get to travel, right? I get all my holidays off for the most part, well, except for the hospital, they never get time off. But at the end of the day, I have a retirement, right? Or back in the days that retirement, now it's different. But at least they can see the road where, okay, I can do 20 years into retirement and get promoted because there's room to grow, right? And most doctors, they get to the pretty much the highest level, successful career is kind of the colonel, captain, level, sort of. After that, they turn into a whole bunch of politics. But at that level, successful career, 20 years in, 22 years in, right? These guys are making $9,000, $8,000 or $9,000 a month in retirement, give or take. Well, maybe not that much, but close. Yeah, close. $8,000 to $9,000 a month in retirement. That means he just wakes up. They just wake up in the morning and they're making that money. Okay. Now, on top of that, they're gonna get a job at a hospital making $400,000 because guess what they have? 20 years experience, 20 years of management, 20 years of leadership, military, background, right? They got all these certifications. And when I went into his office, he had so many degrees, I didn't know what to do with them. I was like, I'm not even talking to this guy. I'm gonna feel stupid. He had degrees, the whole wall was degrees, all right? But the point is that the recruiting effort that they put in to get him, right, to get him to come join the military was intense because it's a competition. He could have went elsewhere or went to any other hospital and he been doing great, right? And so you really have to kind of look at, do I have enough of those people in the area to fit what I need, right? And if I don't, I need to go outside the parameters of my geographic region, right? And it's an HR problem that, you'll run into more often than not, right? That people kind of overlook because we always think everything's here because we live in the city, right? But when there's the Montana, the Idaho, the Iowas, and those kind of things, right? There's not that many of that particular resource, or even in the country, right? You have third world countries that are very poor. They don't have all these super high-end doctors, right? That can do certain things. All right, business strategy, right? What is the company really trying to get at, right? What is our goal? Do we plan on expanding in a couple of years? Do we need a certain skill set in the next 5 to 10 years, okay? Even now, as we are talking, as we're speaking, the push for, so everybody's heard of Facebook, right? Meta, everybody familiar with Meta, right? What's Meta about? With Mark Zuckerberg, what is Meta about?
About visual, like the visual place, something like
Look at the
that.
virtual reality,
Yeah.
right? Virtual reality space, okay? All right, now, he talked about this, what, it's been about 2 years now? He talked about Meta and shifting Facebook from what they're doing now from social media platform to Meta, okay? Now, how much have you really heard about Meta and what's going on with it?
Not much.
Not much. Why is that? Why do you think that is?
They still work on it,
They're still working on it, but why are they still working on it?
because it's a big thing, I think.
No, it is a big thing, right? You're right. It's a long-term big thing, right? But there's another reason why it's moving so slow.
Yeah, because I think, I want to say, maybe there's no competition, you're not looking towards that.
No, this people are looking towards it. No competition yet, yeah.
But maybe the market is not ready for the thing, they are.
No, they're
doing.
ready. Your market's ready. Your market's ready. Because you got all this other stuff, right? You got, you see the virtual reality goggles, I forgot what they call them. You see them on the commercials, you got
Yeah.
Yes,
VR, yeah, VR, right? You're doing all that crazy stuff and people, experiencing all that stuff in virtual reality.
so why they are taking it?
The fact is that we don't have the expertise and the skill set yet to build what he's thinking about. To build what he's thinking about, who's learning it now are the kids in first grade, second grade, right? Who grew up with computers, who grew up with iPads, who grew up with technology, who can code. They don't think about it, they just code. They just, oh, learn how to code, great. So it's just another language to them, right? But they're getting more technical, right? But they starting it here, right? Because for us, for what Mark Zuckerberg is trying to do with Meta, it's just it's so technical, there's not enough people that can really build that platform. That's why he's kind of like lost his kind of steam behind it, because a lot of investors, like you said, they kind of look at it and say, the market's ready, but we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the people, right? We can't really go recruit them because they don't exist, right? There's only so many software engineers out there, and even they really don't have a good grasp as to, how do we build this thing? Okay, how do we build this virtual reality or this thing that Meta is supposed to be, right? And so when you look at that and look at, the business strategy as to what he's trying to do, right? Those two things have to align when it comes to recruiting, right? And so one of the recruiting efforts that not only Mark Zuckerberg has or Facebook has, but Microsoft has, right? And most people don't think of it as a recruiting tool, but it is, right? Microsoft specifically, Bill Gates and Melinda Gates, or Melinda Gates, his wife, they have a lot of sponsors, or they have their own schools, right? They have a lot of programs. They invest in youth programs that strictly are based on coding and technology. That's it, STEM. That's all, right? But they're for kids. They're for youth, right? Because Bill Gates understands that, you know what? These are the kids that are going to continue growing my company. Microsoft will be around for the next 100, 200 years because of the kids, right? But it's a recruiting tool to say, hey, your kid can come to here for free, scholarship and everything, okay? But when they get ready to graduate college, whatever, they have a job here. Okay, they have an opportunity here at Microsoft because we're investing in them, right? That's a recruiting tool. It doesn't pay out right now, but it will pay out later on down the line. Okay, and a lot of companies are starting to now follow that same template. Oh, Microsoft is investing early, right? We're kind of what we call the grassroots kind of investing. All right. Anybody understand what I mean by grassroots? Yeah, from the bottom or yeah, it's from the scratch, but it's also from, say what?
Putting the seeds.
Putting the seeds, right? Starting at the lowest level, right? Where you can easily form and mold the people that how you want them to be. Okay, so you start at the grassroots level. It really started in sports where they had grassroots stuff, specifically basketball I'm familiar with because the youth programs for basketball and how they bring them up from youth, travel ball, high school, college, and the pros, right? Those guys go up this certain path, right? It's the same thing that Microsoft has created. There's a certain path that we're trying to get them to go through so that in the next 10, 15 years, when they get ready to graduate college, guess where they're going? To Microsoft, right? And so Microsoft is not going to have to recruit heavily because they already have a population that they're building themselves, right? And that's the whole key. They're building their own population. We're going to build our applicants. We're going to build the people that we want that's in our company, right? So that we know that they're equipped with the things that we want, right? And if you're in the tech and all that stuff, Microsoft has a program specifically for undergrads that as long as you get into the program, once you graduate the program, you go straight to work for Microsoft. No questions asked, no nothing. You go off to work for Microsoft. Okay? $150,000 job, salary starting, all the perks, all the stuff, because they understand that there's gonna be a fight here soon for tech folks. Okay? If there's not one already. If you don't understand tech, you're just gonna end up being kind of behind, sort of, right? And when I say understand tech, I don't mean in the sense that you have to, we're just gonna be users, okay? If you're not a practitioner in tech, or if you're not, in AI, machine learning, or something tech, that's your career, then we're gonna get kind of left behind. We're left behind now, sort of, all right? There's just a bunch of stuff going on that is super tech heavy that happens down, up the street here all the time. Like the last time, or 2 years ago, we had the autonomous Budweiser truck, Anybody ever seen that, heard that before? No? Well, you know, Tesla makes autonomous trucks, okay? And they have about maybe 300 made, okay, right? But they tested it here in San Diego. So it left San Diego in the middle of the night. It was empty, but it had a driver, but the driver was on the passenger side. So the test was to drive from here to Vegas. Okay? And they did it at night on purpose because, you know, we don't want any accident to happen and people die. But it was a regular 18-wheeler truck and drove all the way to Vegas from here. Okay? And so the reason I say that is that there's a lot of things happening and we as users don't necessarily understand those things, right? But from an HR perspective, right, from a recruiting perspective, what is Budweiser thinking about? Why would they even bother to invest in some kind of technology like that when it's not even really ready? Okay, why would they do that? Distribution, right? Okay, what else? Why would they do it?
For competitive advantage.
Competitive advantage? No, that's exactly competitive advantage, right? Distribution, cut costs, right? Be a competitive advantage. But they also have to think about the truck drivers that they have now, right? So I got a truck driver, that's how they make their money, right? If I got some fancy car that drives itself, what am I gonna do with the truck driver?
All right, so yeah, so if you invest in such firms, you have to think about 401k, you have to think about that.
I gotta think about maintenance, right? That's all I gotta think about, right? But I have to think about the employee. I have to think about the truck driver who's been with me 20 years. Right? I just can't fire that person, say bye, so later I got a robot now. It doesn't work that way, right? People are not gonna stand for it, okay? And so these are the kind of things that, you know, kind of go through the mind of, you know, companies and HR, and, you know, CEOs and COOs, when they think about business strategy and how does it line up with recruiting and how does it line up with our, you know, kind of outlook for things, okay? Because it's gonna change the game as far as how I recruit, all right? Do I even need any more drivers now? Maybe I have a smaller fleet. I'll still hire truck drivers, but maybe I just need half of what I have now, right? And I'll let the other half kind of go into retirement, or once they hit a certain point, like, hey, buddy, stop thinking about retirement, 15 years, I'll give you early retirement, and we just phase you out, right? Because I have all these trucks now, they can do all the work, right? So business strategy is important. Labor market dynamics, right? We kind of talked about it earlier, right? What's going on in the labor market? How many people are out there that want to work? Okay, that's the key. It's not how many people are out there, it's how many people do we have that want to work. Right? If you have people that want to work and they can find a job, there's a good labor market. I think right now for every person, there's at least at least 2 jobs, right? Based on the labor market statistics right now, as of yesterday, 2 days ago, right? And so that's a pretty strong, robust labor market. And so I have to pay attention to that as a recruiter, because what that means now is I'm gonna have to put more money into recruiting. I'm gonna have to give you more stuff. Okay, instead of $5,000 bonus, now I'm gonna have to bump it up to 10, 15,000. Okay, I'm gonna have to think about referral programs. Okay, one of my friends, he works at Accenture. Everybody familiar with Accenture? ACCENTURE. They're in business development. They do all kinds of stuff. They have business with everybody. Facebook, Nike, they do all kinds of stuff. But they're behind the scenes. They're really business development, program development, and trying to enhance and either build proficiencies in supply distribution or in marketing or whatever. So they have different teams, right? But my friend started working there because one of his friends got hired, and the first thing he told him said, hey, if you know anybody you think is qualified and will be interested in working here, please let him know, refer him or her to us, right? And guess what the bonus is? If your person that you refer gets hired. Anybody take a guess? How much?
10K.
Something like that, then.
10K, all right, you guys hit it, 10K,
1099.
$10,000, right? To refer somebody, and if they get hired, they get 10 grand. Okay? Another recruiting tool. Okay? I don't have to go direct to you. You might know a bunch of people, right? You guys are all smart. You probably have smart people around you. Smart, most times people keep, and sometimes, my friends say that about me all the time. I'm not so smart guy, yeah. So you have all these circles, these networks that they want to lean into, right? That they want to leverage, right? So, hey, we'll give you $10,000. You can, if you send it to somebody and we hire them, that's 10 grand. And that's each person. It's not one time. Every time you bring somebody on, boom, 10 grand.
Can
Okay?
we apply to work there?
Yeah, you want to. Yeah, you can. The thing is that, once, recruiting and hiring, it really is about networking. It's not about anything else. If you know someone, the likelihood of you getting the job is pretty high. Okay? And that's why it's important that you kind of build relationships with everyone you meet in your professional and academic setting. Right? Because you really don't know who's gonna be doing what. You really don't, right? And so if you know the person and you remember you slightly, like, remember me, I was in your class, or I was the annoying one, you didn't like me, but whatever, I like you either, but can I get a job? Okay? You just never know. And so it's important that you keep these connections alive. But the companies are doing that because it helps them to minimize the amount of work they have to do. Right? Even in the sense of, I think, who is that? What company is that? I just read it. Either way, there's a company, I can't remember, I just read the article yesterday. They're laying off 18,000 employees.
Amazon?
Yeah, Amazon, okay. They're laying off 18,000 employees. Guess what they're also doing? Still recruiting,
Yeah.
okay? They're looking for 1,000 people. They're
Why?
recruiting.
Why they do that?
Because those 1,000 positions are positions that they can't fill. Right? They're probably really tech heavy or require some level of experience that, is not easily found, right? You just can't walk in the office, you just can't walk in the door and be president.
Yeah.
Right? You gotta be governor, well, not really, be Mr. Trump or President Trump and walk in and be president, I guess, if you have enough money. But at the end of the day, he still has some business background, he understands how to manage money for the most part, that kind of thing, right? But they don't have enough people to fill the positions, right? Even though they're laying 18,000 people off, right? You got to look at the demographics of the layoff, right? Who are they laying off exactly?
Operation?
Operations, maybe
It's a
marketing.
big amount.
No,
They
there's
are too many.
Software engineers, most of them.
a lot of them software engineers, right? Okay, and then that's what the company, well, not to say that's what the company's about, but Amazon's about distribution. At the end of the day, that's their thing. They have distribution down to the side. But when they're laying off or people are, reducing the force, what's the primary thing they're thinking about? As from a company standpoint, right? From HR. So I come to you as a CEO, I say, hey, we need to cut, 10% of the force. What do you think my first criteria is for cutting somebody? Yeah, save money, but what is it I'm looking at? How am I gonna save the money?
So you can hire one person instead of letting off five, but one person can do the work of five.
Okay, that's a good point. That's a good point. And that's true, but there's a certain thing I'm looking at. Well, not, this is one of the many things, but it's usually the primary thing I'm looking at when I start talking about reduction in force.
Yeah, so we have a recent job, looking at what is going on with the. Basically, the job evaluation.
Job evaluation, that goes into it, yeah, that definitely goes into it. But the first thing that we look at, right, is salary. If I'm trying to cut costs, it depends what I'm trying to do. If I'm trying to cut costs, the first thing I look at, who has the biggest salary? Who's making the most money? Right? Because again, payroll is 70 to 80% of a company's operating costs. Okay? So the first thing I'm looking at is who's making the most money. And that typically is one of the first people to go. Okay, so then it goes back to what you were saying. Well, I can hire somebody instead of paying $200,000. I can hire somebody for 100,000, maybe 110, and they can do the job, right? Now you may not get the same quality, but you're willing to take a shot, right? Take a chance, roll the dice, and you get what you get. But you're probably gonna get a quality candidate either way. But the labor market dynamics are important. Make sure that you understand not only, the economic kind of outlook, but the social outlook, right? We gotta take COVID into consideration, right? Whatever factor that is, under, right? How is COVID and people not having had to go to work, how's that affecting the labor market? Okay, there's less people, there's more people, is that, you got people, wanting to do more remote work or hybrid work or flex hours. So all those things matter because all those things equate to money, right? So now, if I let you work from home, right, if I recruit you, or if I say, I want to hire you, and one of the benefits or one of the things that you are wanting to have is remote work, right? That's a leverage point for me as a recruiter, because I can go and say, hey, you can work from home, you go remote. And so that helps me get you, okay, because it's something you want, it's something I can offer, and we can manage it just fine, right? So you kind of have to look at the market and what's going on. And not only domestically, you have to look at the market internationally also, okay? Because for instance, let's just say right now, there's a huge decrease or reduction in fossil fuel use, okay? And it's having a direct impact on OPEC in oil, okay? Even the Russian-Ukraine war is having an impact on oil and that whole industry, okay? And so as that demand starts to decrease, all right, do I really need that many people who are, kind of experts in the oil field, right? And understanding fossil fuels and those kind of things, right? My recruiting is gonna start leaning towards more people that are talking about renewable energy, green, okay? I'm gonna start getting away from fossil fuel guys, right? All these scientists and all these, big oil guys who live in Texas and, the Midwest and parts of it, fracking, right? Right? You don't think about those things, right? But when the whole fracking boom was going, which was like, what, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, everybody know what fracking is? Fracking? Fracking is a process that they use to get oil out of the ground. So basically, it's a high pressure water, you shoot it down to the ground to this very tiny hole, and the whole thing is that it creates pressure and brings the oil up. Okay? So it's a very evasive process. It causes earthquakes, it causes shifts in the Earth's tectonic plates, it does all kind of funky stuff. Okay, and so, we have oil in the United States, we have lots of oil, but it's so far down that they really can't access it. This is why we're relying on everybody else, Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, Russia for oil, because then it's more accessible, right? But if we're getting away from that, I don't need those kind of things, right? And yeah, 3-4 years ago, we had a big fracking push, right? The United States was like, hey, okay, companies, go ahead, start getting the oil out, because we're really trying to get off of the reliance or dependency on the Middle Eastern states, on Russia, on Venezuela, and some of these other countries. And they had this huge influx of people coming in to the Midwest, Iowa, Montana, Idaho, to frack, right? And these guys were making serious money, like $25,000 a month kind of money. Some guys were making 40 grand a month. Okay, so they had such an influx that they couldn't keep up with the housing. These guys were some of these people were living in their trucks during the week, and then on the weekend they go home, or the time off they drive home wherever they were coming from. Hotels couldn't support it, right? And then poof, disappeared. The United States said, no, this is too detrimental to the environment. We're having earthquakes, we're having, all these crazy natural disasters, and we know it's correlated with the fracking. And so, gone, right? And so now, what happens to the recruitment budget for those companies? decrease. We don't need them anymore. Okay, we're not looking for an influx of oil rig guys or guys that understand oil science or environmental science and biologists, and geologists, whatever it is, right? We don't need them anymore, okay? So again, understand the labor market is extremely important and it plays a huge role in recruiting, right? Kind of talk about the financial limits is probably the next big one, right? And this is where we start talking about manpower, okay? And trying to figure out how much money do I really have in the company to spend on recruiting, right? And really it's based on, what I need and the priority I need it in. Okay? Do I need, the greatest janitor, or do I need the greatest, I don't know, secretary or receptionist? It depends. Depends what I'm working at, right? Imagine the receptionist that works at Microsoft. That person probably has a few degrees, right? Because the talk is different, right? It's very, techie talk, it's very high-end talk. It's not the same as going to, I don't know, some other office and the secretary or the receptionist doesn't necessarily need to be versed in anything technical or anything really complicated, okay? So I'm not gonna pay you $100,000, I'm gonna pay you $30,000, right? And I don't need to have a big, big, group of folks to run the front desk. But the money aspect for recruiting, right, and how much money they get really is tied into what we're trying to do, and who do we need, right? And then where do we need to go to get them, right? Do I need to go to Europe? Do I need to go to India? Do I need to go to the Middle East to get the folks that with talent, okay? To come to the United States to work. In some countries we have kind of established pipelines with, them bringing people over to certain industries, right? But for the most part, recruiting is expensive, right? Now, if I have one recruiter, I'm not only paying their salary, okay? I gotta pay for their hotel room every time they move, all their meals per diem, right? How much is per diem? Anybody know how much per diem is per day? Yeah.
Now, in California?
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
You don't know? Per diem is about $50-$60 per day. Okay, for California, it's cheaper, it depends on the state you're in, but for California, $50 per day, and then the mileage, you have to pay for that too, right? If you're driving around all day, huh?
Flight ticket.
Flight tickets,
Yeah.
right? I gotta pay for all that, right? And I also have to pay like a little extra because now I'm asking this person to be away from their family or their friends, right? For extended periods of time, right? And there's a lot of burnout for recruiting. You gotta take all this things into consideration, when we talk about the financial aspect of recruiting, right? Especially if you have to go outside of your regional area, right? If I have to go anything past 50 miles, I really don't want to do that as a company because it's gonna cost me more money. Okay, I want to kind of stay within that 50-mile radius if I can. If I have to go out of it, then I keep it to a limit. I keep, a lot of the time you see job fairs and you see the recruiters there, they flew in last night at midnight, they had to be there to set up at 6 in the morning, and guess what? They're leaving right after it's done. Because that's money, right? The company's giving you 1 day per diem, we're gonna buy your ticket, it's gonna be on Spirit. So good luck with that, okay? Take your own check bag, good luck. Your Uber will cover that, but yeah, handle your business, okay? Get in, don't put any alcohol on the bill, because we don't pay for that, okay? And come on back home, all right? And you better have some quality talent ready for us to interview, all right, to look at. All right, what time is it?
6:30.
6:30. Okay. 6:40. Oh geez, all right, let's take 10, come back to 6:50. Okay? Budar, what's up?
Hi, Professor. How are you doing?
Doing okay, you all right?
Yes, I'm good. So I was talking with the guys with Akash, and they told me that you already assigned me to group 3, but
Yeah,
turned out I
you-
checked the group 3 members and turned out that they are the same, Akash and
Yeah, that's
Hedwig.
it, yeah.
So we are fine, right?
You're good, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. All right. No, Preet, you there?
Huh?
No, I'm talking to, not you. I'm
Oh,
good
okay.
with Love Preet.
All right, thank you.
All right. Love Preet. All right, Love Preet. Can you show up and not, be there? Where you working at now?
With the VA,
Where?
right here, Ernie.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's, so I transferred from the Department of Defense mostly because we had my daughter and I couldn't keep up with like, getting daycare when my husband was employed.
Right, yeah.
Get to daycare, to Pendleton, to daycare.
Oh, you were Pendleton?
Yeah,
Oh,
I was
yeah.
in hospital and and then between active duty and civilian, I was in Department of Defense for 17 years.
Okay.
And then Kearney Mesa opened a new clinic.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm like, I'll apply, I'll see if I'll get it, you know, I didn't think they would, and I actually ended up getting it, so now I go south and I drive right by her daycare. It's
Oh,
hard. I love the Department of Defense, I love my job.
Yeah, no, I'm sure.
I loved it, but I ended up, I mean, which is weird though, like I'm still the same GS level and everything, but for
Yeah.
whatever reason, the VA more, I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't understand that either. They might have your contractor that WG, schedule, or I don't know what,
See, I think we're VM, I don't know.
oh, it's VM now.
At VM now for, well, we were GS and we went VP and now we're paid as a VM, which I have no clue what that means.
It's probably specific to VA because they understand like, hey, we're not gonna get the quality folks we want, paying them this chump change.
You know what the thing too is like, just hearing my colleagues, I have one colleague that came from Phoenix, and in Oklahoma and Fresno as a VA dentist, and we get the lowest paid bonus in San Diego. We get half the bonus that they get in Phoenix and everywhere else, and nobody knows why, like, so I'm new, I'm relatively new, I've been here
Yeah.
almost a year, but I have yet to ask why,
Yeah,
but I'm like, okay, we have a large amount of patient base, so
absolutely.
the highest cost of living.
Yeah,
Why does our bonus, and we actually make less than all the other VA dentists across the US?
huh,
So I'm like, what is it, what that would cause our position, maybe because it's not hard to recruit here?
yeah, that definitely is. It's not hard to recruit here, first day.
Everybody wants to live here, everybody
Everybody.
wants to work here.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wow, I guess, I mean, I didn't realize that would affect our bonus, but that's the only thing I can think of.
It's the only reason.
Yeah, and
Is
so
it?
I'm like, well, that sucks.
Yeah, it does, because, and then you guys have the biggest volume of work. Cause everybody's here in
We're
California, like,
so under-
military, you
Everybody
throw a
retires
rock.
out of here. Everybody retires out.
Yeah, you can throw a rock
And
in front of
everybody's
anybody.
closing like Minnesota and all those colder states,
Yeah.
they're closing VAs, because they're retiring here.
Yeah, yeah.
Come to Phoenix and here, so I think we have 28,000 dental patients for 9 dentists. I'm like,
You say 28,000
yes,
for 9 dentists?
everybody's qualifying for dental. Where it used to be very selective.
So wait a minute, I'm confused, so. Cause that's one of the things I always could boggle my mind, like, I'm retired, but I have to pay for dental, but I don't, it's still not 100%, it's a kind of like a subsidized
Right,
program.
right.
So I'm like, wait a minute, but if you go to the VA, you can get it,
So it depends on when you retire, did you get a disability rating?
yeah.
Okay, so if you're 100%, then you get dental. Anything
Oh,
less than 100, you don't get dental.
you'll get
So
dental,
like, I don't get it either. I
okay,
have a rating and I get free medical care.
yeah.
I'm a medical patient, but I don't get dental. But it seems like it's across the board, everybody's doing. I've never seen anything like this.
I wish, I'm waiting on mine to come back,
If you need to be changing it, so you can get eligible for
yeah,
dental. If you have TRICARE,
yeah, TRICARE Prime.
which is still an awesome.
No, I love TRICARE Prime, yeah,
That's what I use too.
Yeah.
Like, I use TRICARE and I know plan for that, which you should keep anyway, even if you.
I do, yeah, that's what I have, yeah,
Even if you get to VA dental, you keep that.
yeah, I'll keep,
Okay.
yeah,
You know how hard it is to get in when you're competing against.
right,
each
yeah.
other? Even if you have like a sick call, you have pain, we're like 7, 8 months out. I've like booked through like May. And I was like,
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, we don't have a triage sick call set up,
No, yeah,
so we have to send you out of town, but I tell a lot of my patients, I'm like, do you have access to TRICARE? And they're like, yeah, I'm like, keep it.
Yeah,
That's the
okay,
best thing you can do. And so even if you did, which is nice because we can pay for everything and do it in-house, that access to care is big. And if you travel, you can't just walk into dental and.
yeah. You
Because
can,
you have to be a patient.
Yeah, to
So
be a
if
patient,
bring
yeah.
it Out of town, they're a prick.
yeah,
So like you want TRICARE. TRICARE will fix you in Minnesota.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely,
so
yeah.
like TRICARE's still the best option. Like,
Yeah,
that's
I love
what
my
use
TRICARE.
too. But yeah, you have to keep revisiting your rating, because it
Yeah.
changes too, like the amount you get for each condition
Yeah,
is constantly changing, and so you want to keep revisiting your rating.
yeah, I just put a package in probably November to, let me look at my rating, because I have 50% for sleep apnea.
So it's 80 now.
Well, I don't know, no, it's still 50,
It's supposed to be around 80.
is it?
It's supposed to,
Yeah, I haven't
because
seen
that's a
it,
condition that never improved.
Yeah.
It actually gets worse with age.
I haven't seen it, and maybe that's why I haven't got a response back
Is
yet.
that your only rating now?
The only, as far as like what I got,
Rated for? Did you get easier?
no, I got, yeah, I have everything service connected, I got 12 things service connected, but it's the only one that gave me
Anything for it?
anything
So
for.
the rest of them are zeros?
They're all zero, yeah.
And you need those rated.
Yeah, oh, I went back, yeah, I went back in, and I'm literally waiting for,
Keep doing it.
yeah, I'm waiting for them to come back. I thought I would have by now,
Wow.
2013,
Okay, I was 12.
yeah,
What I'm finding is, like, when they rated us, to what they're doing now, 10 years later, it's totally
so
different.
different, huh?
I mean, you come in as a GERD now, you know, like 50%.
Really?
Yeah, so anything you have, like, my husband too, I'm like, just see the doctor. I was like, keep seeing the doctor because these are conditions that get worse. And
No, they
in
do, yeah.
2012, I was like, yeah, whatever, I don't care that I have that. And now I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting older and I actually have a problem.
Yeah.
Thank God I'm rated, you know, so
That's the
I
thing.
never thought I'd get old for whatever reason. And now things that they rated me for, I'm like, whatever. Now I'm like, thank God.
That's exactly what's happening, my knees,
Yes.
my fingers,
Yeah.
my arthritis, I'm
Things that
like,
you're like, oh, I have arthritis in my hip.
yeah,
Although we'd be athletic and healthy. Oh, no.
no, they hurt, and so,
So that's, I'm glad you got zeros, because you can just keep revisiting them.
Yep.
And that will eventually take you to 100, but what I'm finding is a lot of my patients, majority of my patients are between the ages of 25 and 44.
mm,
They're no longer that older population that you used to see, like, you know, at the VA and local area, the home population.
Right, yeah.
the Retired vets that, you know, were.
on their deathbed,
Yeah, exactly, the Korean War.
Yeah.
They all passed away.
yeah,
I mean, how long ago was that?
right, the
So
Vietnam
now
vets are
it's
kind of
like-
going,
Everybody's in business suits coming in, they're going out to their jobs.
well, I'm not part of the younger population,
You are though, actually. I mean, how old are you?
I'm 50,
You're young. You're the young population.
really,
Mhm.
wow,
You're my young population. Like when I look at my patients, I mean, now, like my oldest are like 85.
okay,
Yeah, but I mean, my general median is
Oh.
about 50.
okay, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, my husband is like 44 and he would probably, yeah, that's like my median.
Okay.
I've seen 22-year-olds with 100%.
oh, there's a crap load of them, it's just knowing the system. The army is great, yeah,
They're not gonna, what are they gonna say, you're lying?
yeah, that's right,
Yeah.
I'm like,
Any form of like, what I've noticed is like any form of like psychosis claim that falls under mental health, they can't ever test you for it.
no.
So they can say, okay, I don't sleep, I can't eat, like I suffer from this, okay?
That's what I went in, because it was basically have an autoimmune. But the autoimmune, you know, when it first happened, it was like totally devastating. It was like, it totally changed my whole world upside down. And now I take, this medication called tacrolimus. I don't know if you know it.
Mhm.
And it's like, dude, I'd have to take it for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
And then I was like, and they gave me 0.
No, so they need to rewrite that.
Yeah, so that, I went back in with that, like, hey, this is causing me like some depression. It's like, it affected me for a long time as far as like my social
Yeah.
behavior, you know, being in class and on my knees, you know, I can't stand up as long as I used to. Now, granted, I still, you know, try to stay, you know, athletic and, you know, some kind of activity. I play basketball once a week. I try to.
It hurts though.
Right, it hurts like crazy, you know. I can't chase 21 around like I used
No,
to.
no, no, no.
Yeah.
It hurts, you know, but.
Yeah, it hurts, yeah.
But the thing is, that you can have a lot of conditions that are secondary to that too, like depression or insomnia.
Mhm.
Like you, I mean, like you, and you've got to make sure you mention them to your primary and keep, because those things do come up. And the secondary ratings are generally what, you may not get a huge change on that.
But you're getting
initial,
to it.
but you'll get a secondary. So like you thought of just keep revisiting it and have it documented and let them re-rate it.
I used the company this time,
Which one?
Van,
So the people that can help you with the re-rating?
yeah,
Yeah, you have, I've heard that you have to do that. And
yeah,
they're out, there's just some veteran-owned ones that help you.
yeah, because
It's
I,
still worth it.
yeah, it's totally worth it, and I think, you know, they did my whole thing. They set up all the appointment, it was so fast.
Good.
This is the longest part right now, because it took literally 2 or 3 weeks for me to get my package together. I went to the VA doctor, then I went to see the other doctor that they had, and I had 2 psychological evaluations, one from the VA.
Where
And
they underrate you so bad.
yeah, they,
Compared to the doctors out in town, they're like, you have to live on this med the rest of your life, and then you go to the VA and they're like, and
yeah,
everybody's on it, what's the problem?
right.
I don't want to live on it.
I don't want to live
I
on
want
it,
to get
yeah.
off of that.
My friend retired out of Salt Lake, he's a Navy commander.
Mhm.
And it was crazy the difference. She went to the Air Force because there wasn't, you know, much in the way of,
Or for that.
yeah, any, you know, doctors and all that stuff out there in Salt Lake for the military guys. And she went out and they sent her to the civilian doctor. This guy, you told her,
I know,
did you say your hair fell out the other day when you were brushing the one strand?
yep, I know, I know. It's
I
nightmare.
was like, she came in with 100%, and before I knew it, she was permanent.
know.
I was like, what is going on? Like, really? Now, she has some other stuff going on that rated. She just deserved every penny.
Right, but they bid for it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I saw a rating, because I mean, like, all my patients, obviously, I see the rating breakdown.
mm-hmm,
And I'm like, what? Like, I'm like, dermatitis.
Yeah.
Shut the door.
dermatitis,
My mask is a daily. And I was just like,
0. I was like, mm-mm. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping they
and you
come
know
back.
what? Get the rating and then do it again.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I'm going to. Yeah, I'm going. Yeah.
These medical plans, you keep saying, it's not getting any better, it's
Yeah.
not getting any better, and then keep rating. and-
Yeah. I'm shooting for my 100.
I look now and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, 24, and they think about actually this is what's happening, because it's breathing nonsense.
Absolutely.
They're like, I don't need it.
Yeah,
You're 24,
yeah.
you're gonna live another 60 years.
If you're gonna work,
Live
then
off
you can
that
do
for
something.
60
Yeah,
years,
you
'cause
can.
it doesn't go up,
Yeah, and it,
cost of living does.
yeah, the cost, it'll go up, but not in a way that you wanted to go up, right?
No,
Because the
and
cost of living
it's
is gonna go up.
And this federal pay does not.
No, yeah,
1%.
Yeah.
But no, they're like, oh, I'm gonna go to school and then,
yeah, think about it. Yeah, like, great.
but then my 30-year-old and I was like 35-year-olds, and them all have careers. They're
Yeah.
all working immigrants, you know, they're coming in and see.
Yeah,
From 20-year-olds, I'm like, you're gonna live a long time. Like, you gotta do something. You gotta go to work.
yeah,
You gotta get a job. You gotta do something. You gotta be productive. Like, I always see it, and it's really has enabled a
Yeah.
lot.
laziness. So much laziness.
Mhm.
Maybe,
It's just like that. I don't know who does you're right, like the screening process and then the rating process.
Mhm.
Like, they're definitely not a calibrated system. It's
No.
Like, you look at like the medical record and then the 21-year-old, it's like, okay, good.
Yeah,
Like, service connected issues, like,
this dude was 4 years. I was 21 years. Why, how do you think that person,
I saw 100% one that was in the way for 2 years and offered her early for the reset. Because
Yeah.
they were downsizing.
Yeah.
100% because she said it was in a job, so she was automatically going to say no. Yet when I give her an exam, I'm like, do you have any restrictions on that?
okay,
I knew what.
yeah, it's,
I'm like, that was like, for dental and it's 100%.
yeah,
2 years.
I'm trying to get that 100%, especially with that huge bump
Well,
we just got.
yeah, I know.
I think like $3,600 for it. No dependent, like for me, if I get the 100%, it'd be an extra
Well, I-
$2,500.
Yeah, because it went up, what, like 4%.
Yeah. It's
I did it
ridiculous.
Ever, but it had to, because it didn't go up the last 6 minutes,
Yeah, I wouldn't know, seen, I never, you know, I got
never went
50%,
never.
yeah.
Even if you had another dependent, it was like $51.
Yeah, see, it's not much.
Yeah,
It's
so
not much.
I'm glad that they did that, but, no, it has changed the time.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, I'll let you know, cause, I'm definitely,
It shouldn't be too long.
yeah, it's been over 6 weeks. I submitted it in November, like right after Thanksgiving, or right before Thanksgiving, I did the VA. exam, which was the last one I had to do.
Yeah.
And I've talked to the psychologist or,
Did you use your GI though?
yeah, I used them, I did a long time ago. That and what you call it? Yeah, you know, the top up, cause I came with Montgomery. GI Bill.
I do.
Yeah, so I got the top up
Okay.
afterwards,
We
but
now have a, something, you know, there's something, there's another one that you can continue to go on. I don't know what it is, yeah, one of my people told me about it.
I
But
think-
they'll, like, if you have a 4 or 5 year program and like GI only covers 3,
Mhm.
so it'll cover those 2.
Okay,
Outside the yellow, this thing, yeah. It's a lot of them.
it's too much out there, but it's ridiculous. And, yeah, I'm gonna wait and see what happens. Hopefully.
They have that, like, you know, where no one's complaining about like access to that big,
Mhm.
like, what 5 years.
Oh, in addition, they were handing out the cards and all that.
And then like, people like, you can't get in, and like, there's waiting lists, and like, you know, just that be a huge deal, like, people would be negatively reflected in the spotlight.
Mm.
And now they're like, in the other direction, I feel, everybody's so hypersensitive, because they're like, they don't want anyone to like,
That's the military.
Yeah.
That's
so they're like, nobody can complain, don't let anyone complain, do whatever they want, do
Yeah.
whatever they ask,
Just, let's keep the spotlight on it, all right? Let's keep positive out of it.
yeah.
Okay. All right, and more strategic recruiting and HR plan, all right? So when we look at HR, you know, as far as strategic recruiting and how do we plan this whole thing out, right? So again, understanding what the business strategy is, the milestones or the goals that we're trying to get to, okay? And also understanding how and where to recruit, right? And we talked about this already. How do I recruit the people and where do I go to go get them? Right, this is probably one of the more important aspects of recruiting, right? Where do I send my people to go get, you know, good people, talented people? That's why we have job fairs at schools, right, and colleges and universities. We have job fairs on military bases, right, because we have a group of experienced folks who want to get into labor force and make the transition out of the military and back into the civilian sector, okay? So you have to pick out these really fertile grounds, right, to find the talent that you're looking for, right? You have to identify keys to success in the labor market, right? Again, understanding what's making the labor market tick is really what you're looking at, right? What is driving force? Everybody now more concerned about their work experience over their salary, right? Or people concerned more about, hey, I want a cool boss. I'll take a $10,000, you know, pay cut or less money if I know I'm gonna be working with a cool person, or I know I'm gonna work in an environment that is going to be, you know, lend itself to doing other things I like to do, right? Or the people that I like to work with, right? Or the things that I wanna do, like I like to work alone, right? So if I'm gonna be able to get a job like that, then, okay, cool, I'm willing to, you know, kind of look at that, but as someone who's evaluating the labor market, you have to look at all the different aspects and figure out what are the driving forces to, you know, what people want, right? What's gonna bring them into my purview, right? What's gonna bring them and attract them to my company, and how do I get them, right? And then once I get them, how do I retain them, right? Determine the balance between quality and quantity. We talked about that already. I'm not even gonna beat that up too much, right? But usually at the higher level, we're looking at quality. We're not worried too much about quantity, right? From a recruiting standpoint, you know, when it comes to quantity, it's really about this, again, finding, you know, enough applicants, qualified applicants for the jobs that, you know, we need to fill, all right? And so sometimes we may have an abundance of people that have a bachelor's degree, but I need someone with a master's degree, and I have 2 of those people, you know, that are eligible or qualified, right? But I have a whole bunch of bachelor's people that don't necessarily have the degree requirement, but maybe they have the degree and they have some experience. I have a bachelor's and 5 years experience. Does that work? All right, does that work for me as a company? Am I going to hire that person on because they have the experience? Because the degree is great, but again, as I said, all the degree does is show the company, organization that, hey, I can stick with something for 4 years and finish up and, you know, come to a conclusion. Because when you get there, they're gonna make you, hey, just forget everything, you don't really care about it. We're gonna show you how to do it always, all right? And then recognize limits of time and money for recruiting, okay? Yeah. the time and the money is a big deal, right? Again, people are not trying to spend a whole bunch of money on recruiting if they don't have to, right? If I can spend the minimal amount and get the highest quality talent possible that's out there, that's what I'm gonna do, right? Sometimes, some companies have maybe 1 or 2 people as recruiters. Okay, it all depends on what's going on, how the company's looking, what the requirements are, what is coming down, down the pipeline, right? And it's going to keep abreast of legislation. What's going on in the government? It has a big impact on how we recruit and hire, right? Right now, of course, the government has a big push on renewable energy, green, getting away from fossil fuels and that kind of thing. Trying to, incentivize people to get electric vehicles, okay, with tax cuts and all this stuff. Companies see all this and they start to think, oh, wait a minute, like, are we really gonna need anybody to do this other stuff if the government's pushing to do all this other stuff? Because government contracts are huge, government money is humongous, all right? If I can get a deal with the government as as a company, all right, that's a big stream of revenue for me, all right? The other thing I think about, most countries don't necessarily think about this, but we have guns here in the United States, as is evident in the past couple of days, right? Imagine we had legislation that says, you know what, all firearms are banned. Okay, like most countries. No more firearms, no more guns. You can't have a gun unless you're in the military, law enforcement, or maybe hunting, and you gotta go through this rigorous process, right? Guess what they're gonna do to Smith and Wesson, right? But Smith and Wesson's a big gun, one of the oldest, if not the oldest gun manufacturer, all right? That is going to destroy them, okay? So guess what? Because they don't necessarily, because this gun legislation is saying, hey, we're not gonna allow guns anymore, reduction in force. I don't need to recruit anymore, okay? I'm gonna recruit, or maybe in the foreseeable future, my company's gonna get smaller, so I don't need to go out there and get talent anymore. I just now need to call the talent I already have to get to the point where I can sustain my business, right? Because the revenue's not gonna be coming in as much, because now I can't sell the guns. So that's why it's important to keep abreast of what's going on with the government, what's going on with policy, and, even what's going on with, what's in the news, right? Because those things drive policy, those things drive legislation. Past couple of days, we had 2 mass shootings, right? One in, Bay County, and the other one in downtown, right? So, and the guy from one of them, he lived in Hemet. Everybody familiar with Hemet up north? He lived in Hemet, he drove and shot all people, right? So those kind of things, even though they haven't really had a big impact on gun legislation in the United States at the moment, eventually they start to mount up, and the people will eventually say, you know what, we need to do something about a gun ban, right? We need, a ban on automatic rifles or semi-automatic, firearms, or everything in general, right? That the reason they don't do that is because it destroys the business. Okay, the capitalism, you can't really go off of what's kind of right, sort of, right? You gotta go off of what's gonna make money, what's gonna destroy the economy, because people are concerned about their job, right? But from the recruiting aspect, and for a company, I have to stay abreast of everything that's going on, because it's gonna have an impact on my business. Yeah, it's gonna have an impact. And I need to know where it's gonna impact, how it's gonna impact, how much it's gonna cost me, and what's my long-term outlook, when it comes to handling it, even from a PR sense. All right, although Smith and Wesson hasn't come out, or none of these other companies have come out and said anything yet, eventually they're gonna ask the question like, hey, who manufactured the gun that they used for the shooting? They're gonna ask, okay, if they haven't already. And guess what? It's just waiting, because it'll be on the news. Oh, Smith and Wesson made a gun that the guy used to kill, 10 people. What, does they already have to do anything? Nothing. Okay, Smith and Wesson didn't put the gun in the person's hand and tell me to go. But that doesn't matter. Okay, it doesn't matter. Smith and Wesson is still responsible because they manufacture guns. Just like the cigarette companies, right? They manufacture cigarettes, which cause cancer, which causes deaths, and other things, right? And so the cigarette companies are not liable and open and get sued, right? So all these things, they all, have an effect on recruiting and how the organization moves when it looks to hire people, and kind of retain folks also, right? And in measuring recruiting effectiveness and effort, right? Really, measuring recruiting is kind of a long-term process because you really don't know what you're getting till 6 months, a year in, maybe 2 years in. You don't know what you got, okay? Because there are many people in the organization that you hire, they were superstars, they got the job, 6 months later, they're duds, okay? They've gotten to the company, got complacent, maybe there's not enough work, maybe there's not enough to do, maybe the work is challenging, they just kind of get lazy about it, okay? So measuring it is rather difficult. Now, if you're measuring whether or not, and there's different things to measure, right? I can measure diversity within the organization. I can measure recruiting effectiveness as far as like, hey, do I hit the goals or do I meet somewhat, some of the minimums for each one of the skill sets we're looking at, right? You can measure those things right away. But as far as like, did we recruit the right way? You're not gonna know till later on down the line. It's kind of like recruiting a player, right? When they recruited Ronaldo or Messi or Mbappe, I don't pronounce his name. I can't remember. I never know how to pronounce his name, right? Yeah, Mbappe, right? When they first started, nobody knew they were gonna be superstars. Like that talent, but I didn't know they were gonna be that good, right? I didn't know LeBron was gonna be LeBron. Bless you, all right? So it took some time to see that, right? Because there's been a lot of top picks, top draft picks, top people that come out, oh, they're the best in high school, best in college, and they get to the professional ranks and they are trash. Okay? They're just not good. You just can't hang, right? But you don't know that for years, right? And so your recruiting wasn't really effective, right? The analysis you did to bring this person in wasn't really good, right? And that usually says something about the interview process that the recruiters have, right? And so when you go in to your job interview, you may get, and just so you know, most times when you go for a job, the hiring manager is someone that they kind of picked out, or the person there, a lot of times somebody picked out that, hey, you gotta sit on this board, you gotta go, screen this person or interview this person. They don't want to be there. They just got picked. The boss is doing something else, and so you got it, right? So when they get to the interview, many instances you can tell the direction that it's going to go in, right? You go into interview and they start talking about, this is kind of tips for when you're interviewing, if you're going to interview later on down the line, right? You start getting some personal connection with the interviewer, and that would take up the whole interview. The interview didn't ask me one question about anything technical. We talked about sports the whole time and our common association with the military. And then he's like, well, great interview. And then the next day, they offer me the job. They asked me not one question about the job. Okay, looked at my resume, looks good, and then we just yap. Okay, and so what I'm getting at is that, it's all about the fit, but at the same time, there's a lot of not useless people in the organization, because that's not really the right word. Sometimes you just don't get it right because you didn't ask the right question, right, as a recruiter. The interview was not sufficient enough to get a proper analysis of who you're dealing with and what it is you really need. Does this person fit the need, right? Does this person fit the requirements that we really are looking for, right? They're personable, great, right? And they're teachable, okay? But at the same time, you still need a foundation to go in there, all right? All right, so let's look at some recruiting responsibilities, all right? So different, and we're talking about assigned recruiting responsibility, we're talking about different ways in which people recruit or companies recruit, right? Most companies have an internal recruiting team, right? The bigger the company, the more likely they have an internal recruiting team. But they also use external recruiting teams, okay? You have your headhunter, you got your, your outsourcing, you got your PEO, professional employee organization. And all these people are really they're doing the legwork for the company. They're going out and they are putting the job advertisements out there or saying, hey, we're looking for people with, 10 or 15 years experience in this field, this degree, send your application in, send your resume in, and we'll let you know, okay? And then what happens is they take all those people and they try to screen them out for the company and say, hey, company, we got 100 candidates here, all right, all qualified, good to go. You pick the ones you want, and then we'll call them and bring them in for you, all right? And the company goes, and looks, and we want that guy, this girl, okay, cool. We'll take 5 out of the 100. Thank you very much. And we bring them for interview, and if they get hired, well, they will get paid a fee anyway, but if they get hired, they get more of a fee, okay? So there's all these companies out here that do the legwork for the company, for the organization, the hiring organization. So they don't have to necessarily go out and do it themselves. Other companies solely rely on these other outsourcing companies. They don't send anybody, they don't have any recruitment team, have anybody. All HR does is onboard. They don't, deal with all this other stuff, right? They say, hey, we're looking for this, good to go, we'll find them for you, all right? The one that and the thing is with a lot of these companies, they're really good in the sense that they help facilitate and streamline the process for everyone involved, okay? So if you put in a resume into, Monster or Glassdoor or something like that, where does that go? Anybody know where that goes? Recruiter, maybe, yeah. But I'm saying, like, if you see a job on Glassdoor, right, and you put in your application, you put in your resume, right, what do you think, huh? It goes to the HR, right? Does it?
I think so.
No.
For sure?
I think they also have their back, like the staffing companies,
Mhm.
whom that it goes, and from there it goes to the,
Okay, yeah, maybe.
they play a middle role.
I think it doesn't show about it in particular, these sites are set up to do like going to a particular database and, it's sorts out based on what you have on the resume.
Okay, yeah. So that's what happens, okay? It goes in the database, it gets sorted out, and if you don't have the keywords or like certain percentage, the algorithm runs through it, if you have a certain percentage of keywords they're looking for, it just sits there. It just sits there. How many resumes do you think Monster gets a day?
Too many,
What's too many?
like maybe, yeah,
How many?
thousands of.
1,000?
I think so,
They get like 10,000 a minute.
a million, so million.
10,000 a minute. And the average HR recruiter is gonna look at your resume for how long?
Less than a minute.
30 seconds. You get 30 seconds to be special. Okay, that's all you get, 30 seconds. Right? And so you have, Monster, Glassdoor, these big companies just collecting resumes. They just sit there. Has anybody ever submitted Glassdoor or Monster or anything like that? None? Nobody? Oh, okay, you will. All right. You won't hear from them. I don't know anybody that's ever got a job through any of those things, right? But if you use a headhunter, right, or use one of these other organizations, it cuts out the red tape, right? Specifically if you use a headhunter. So I used a headhunter when I retired from the military. It's probably the best thing I could have done, okay? Because what happened is I gave my resume and they just looked at it, said, okay, we'll call you. And it's really like you're applying to a club. And if you get in and say, yep, you're marketable, we can get you a job, we have a few things lined up, and they'll do all this other analysis. And then after that, they'll call you and say, or they call me and say, hey, next Friday, 10 o'clock, bring 3 copies of your resume, you're interviewing with Hyundai, Carnival Cruise, Petco. Okay? I went in Friday, I even with boom, boom, boom. Each interview was about 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And literally the next day, hey, you get results. The company wants you to do a second interview. Okay, no problem. I went in for the next interview, and that's off-site. They'll fly you wherever they're gonna go. All right, you get there, you do another interview, couple of days. Hey, we're gonna send you a job offer. We like you. Let's do business. Okay, it goes just that fast. The other thing about it is that you, as the candidate, don't pay. Okay, you don't pay for that. If any headhunter, any of these organizations ask you for money, walk away. This is game. Okay, they get paid by the company, right? You don't pay them. Okay, it's free to you because they're providing a service to the company, right? Finding you, right? Talented, educated, ready to go, right? I'm bringing you on a silver platter. Look what I found for you, okay? And so don't bite into it, but it streamlines the process so much, right? And it makes the job much easier as far as recruiting goes, because now I have this centralized group of people that I can tap into that I know they're all qualified, they all have, the credentials, and all I'm doing is lining them up with jobs, looking at their skill sets, and sometimes, I would get an interview and I'm like, well, I can't do any of that stuff. They're like, well, don't worry about it. You have management skills, you have leadership skills, right? You have other degrees and other things that they might be looking for. Just go, right? And out of all the jobs, I interviewed maybe like 8 different companies. I got 6 job offers over a serious time, right? I used to work for Toyota, I worked for Wells Fargo, but every time I went in, I used a headhunter. I used, one of these organizations to help me. I never applied to Monster or Glassdoor or anything like that. So it really streamlines the recruiting process. It saves money for the recruiters or for the company. It saves you time and money, right? And stress and anxiety, right? Going through the process of waiting and not hearing anything back. Because if you go through just normal, even if you go through the company website, you may not hear anything. They may not ever contact you. They just don't need you, right? They won't contact you until they need you. Because it's really hard for HR to reach out to 10,000 people to come know. Okay, so be aware of what's out there as far as recruiting goes. And also remember that as you're working for a company, you're always recruiting. You're representing the company. Okay, I have a friend here. He's teaching upstairs. We'll go with Dr. Vasquez. Everybody familiar with Dr. Vasquez? No? You're not familiar with Dr. Vasquez? You guys should be familiar with Dr. Vasquez. Dr. Vasquez is the president of the school. Okay, you guys should know who she is, all right? But at least know her. All right?
I know.
I know her, but I don't know the last name.
Oh, you know the name? Okay.
Yeah.
What was his first name?
Chip. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Chip
know.
is on, that's right.
I know.
All right, Dr. Vasquez, okay? And so when Dr. Vasquez got here, I was already here, but Dr. Vasquez and I worked in another school together. Right, and then we were doing some business here, and then the president at that time, I don't know if you guys remember Dr. Giuliani. Nobody considered Dr. Giuliani. Okay, no worries. But he asked me to come teach here, okay? And so it really is about, hey, networking. All right, so I came over here, and then after that, Dr. Vasquez came, and she came as the president, all right, and then now I have another friend of mine who is working here as an instructor, all because he knew Dr. Vasquez and she brought him in. Okay, not a big recruiting effort, but the point is that you are a walking recruit. Okay, people are gonna ask, like, oh, you're working for the VA, like, hey, is there anything open, or how you like it there? All right, what you say, is important, right? You gotta think of yourself as yo. All right, if somebody asks me, how you like the school? Well, the school's all right. I love the students, but I don't know about the school. All right, that may give some hesitation to come work here, right? But you are a recruiter also, right? And maybe not in the overt, obvious way, but when people ask you, where do you go to school at? I go here, at CMU. You like it? Yeah, I like it a lot. Okay. They might go home, look it up, like, oh, it's not a bad place. And then they put an application in, right? Wouldn't you like to get a referral for that? Maybe $500, $100 or something like that. And if I bring my friends to come to school here, can I get a little bit of money? Some schools have that. Some schools have a referral program. If you bring your friends in, they'll hook you up. The military has something like that. I think they still have it. I don't know if they still have it. They used to have it. Okay, referral program. But don't forget, you are always at the end of the day, at the end of the day, you are also recruiting, just being part of the organization and being out there representing the folks, all right? All right, what time is it?
7:20.
Okay, we got plenty of time. Okay, so now let's get into some of the, more organizational type stuff, right? Core versus flexible staffing, right? So when I'm looking at recruiting and I'm trying to figure out who I'm gonna get, right? A lot of it is based on what the requirements are back in the organization, right? Do I need a group of people that are going to be part of the long-term plan for the company? Or am I looking for people that are kind of can plug and play and pull back out? Okay? So there's a difference between your core folks and your flexible folks, all right? So your core folks are the folks that are there, be it full-time, part-time, whatever, but they are there on a regular basis, right? Then you have your folks that are there maybe seasonally, okay? Like Christmas, all right? Whenever Christmas season comes up, you see all the stores, they're hiring a bunch of people, all right? But as soon as the season's over, like this week, basically, they're cutting everybody. You gotta go, all right? We'll see you in, I don't know, the summertime maybe, or fall, right? Because people start going back to school again, school shopping, all this other stuff, right? People are shopping. And so you have to have that foundation, that group of folks that you count on, that come to work every day, that aren't going anywhere. They know that this is what they do, and, there's nothing else to it, right? But you have your flexible people that are basically as needed, right? And again, the reason that you do flexible, type employees is for a number of reasons. One, it gives you a lot of flexibility, okay? I can, add 20 people one day, I can get rid of 20 people the next day, right? I can not have to pay benefits, which is a big deal, right? If I have a full-time employee and I bring them on as part of my core team, I got to pay the benefits, right? Whereas if I bring in a contractor or someone who's on a flex or who's seasonal or temporary, I don't have to give them any benefits, okay? And that saves money, right? Because again, that rolls in all this kind of payroll stuff, right? All the benefits that, get given to you, and the payroll taxes, all right? You pay payroll taxes to the government, so does the company. You pay half, the company pays half, all right? The taxes that you see you're paying, that's only half of it, or portion of it. The company pays the other portion. And so they really try to keep the, staff at a level that is manageable, but not a surplus, okay? And then we talked about surplus talent already. We don't want surplus talent, all right? We have to kind of pick out who we think is, kind of the core, and then just put everybody else on their way, or make them, temporary or part-time, something like that. All right? All right, talking about temp works already. All right. Independent contractors, anybody ever worked with independent contractors? Yeah, it's good, okay. Independent contracting is pretty, it's not a bad gig. It's just that you have to do everything on your own, everything. Okay, you're basically your own company at the end of the day, that's really what it boils down to. And the recruiters, the company, they're not really obligated to too much, okay? As long as there's a contract As long as you meet the requirements of the contract, you're good to go, but the company has no obligation to give you anything as far as benefits or pay you for anything that's outside of the contract.
Like
Okay.
Uber driver,
But that,
like the Uber driver.
that's an interesting thing, right? Because that's what Uber started out. That was their HR or organizational strategy, all right? Is to make everybody independent contractors, right? And the way they did it, how did they promote it, or how did they market it, I should say? How did they market it?
To the driver, to the
Yeah,
driver.
to the driver. Mhm.
So they get to work at any time,
Okay, yeah. Be an entrepreneur, own your own business. That's how they marketed it, right? Work anytime, right? You don't wanna work today, you don't work. But tomorrow, work tomorrow, right? But you have your own, you have control over your own schedule, okay? But with that, freedom, autonomy comes no medical, no dental, no overtime, no anything, no benefits whatsoever, okay? But then what happened, maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years? Maybe a year and a half ago. It happened about a year and a half ago. With Uber specifically.
Government stopped them,
Government stopped them, okay, and then what?
and they are trying to make some employees, I don't know, as a core maybe.
Yeah, okay, so basically, there was enough complaints and people were struggling enough to where, they went to the government and said, hey, this is unfair what they're doing, like, we understand we're independent contractors, but we don't get anything. Like, Uber doesn't give us enough, like, car maintenance, like zero, nothing at all, right? And if I'm working for you, and you're taking, I think they take 30% of the money. Yeah, 30%, right? So you take 30% of the money for what? For your platform, that I'm using your system, that's it, all right? They don't do anything else. And so they went to Congress and said, hey, you guys gotta do something about this. And Congress has now stepped in and said, hey, you have to make these guys either some kind of part-time worker, or they're gonna be employees under the technical term. They're not gonna be independent contractors anymore, okay? So, exactly, that's what Uber did, like,
That's a lot of money.
a lot of money, right? Uber was like, part of my friends, fuck that. Okay, we know that's not how we're gonna roll. We're not gonna make any money doing that, okay? Our 30% that we take is gonna be diminished to 1 or 2%, because most of that's gonna go towards benefits and all this other stuff. Yep. There's the employees, right? And so you have to kind of look at those things and think like, how is that affecting the company, right? Because Uber is now a regular part of our lives, right? I use Uber all the time. I don't know too many people who don't use Uber, right? Everybody uses Uber and Lyft, whatever the case may be, right? But if they have to take on employees now, guess what's gonna happen? And we've already seen it happening, right? So, all right. I need you took an Uber today, right? Yesterday, okay? So anybody ever been in Uber and then you go to get it and it has a surge price? The surge thingy? Why do they have the surge thingy?
Demand. The demand in the area was,
It's increased, right?
Yeah.
During that time period, right? This is true. But the demand gone up, what hasn't gone up?
it's fair.
No,
the number of drivers.
Oh,
the supply. Right? Demand's gone up, but not supply. So guess what? Supply becomes more valuable. Okay? That's why they can surge price. Okay? That's the only reason they can do it, because we don't have enough drivers. But the problem they're gonna run into shortly is now we have employees. We don't want any more drivers. All right? Now anybody with a car can be a Uber driver, right? I can turn around tonight, put an application in, and I'm sure tomorrow I can drive Uber.
Yeah.
Okay? It's very simple, it's not difficult, okay? But now Uber is gonna go, wait, man, we don't have space for you. I don't have enough money to pay your benefits. Right, so guess what? Sorry, buddy. You have to go to Lyft maybe, or find another job, right? And what does that do? That still decreases the supply to the consumer, okay? And that also creates monopolies, right? Because there's no competition, right? It's Uber and Lyft. Is there any other ride share services out there?
There's the yellow cab,
The yellow cab, but that's been around.
It's,
Yeah.
small, that's like small,
No, you're talking about like a regular taxi?
or like a.
Like, is there any other ride sharing
Okay.
company aside from Lyft and Uber? No. Why is that? What do you guys think it is?
Actually, there was one, but it's for the Middle East, like it's not in here. And then Uber bought it.
Uh,
Bought
and
it,
then Uber,
yeah.
okay. It's, go ahead. Why do you guys think that is?
There's one in India, Ola.
Alright, so for me, if I was thinking, if I was planning to do some kind of business, now knowing that, Uber and Lyft, now have some obligations to their drivers, I
Yeah.
would think so, I'd try that. I don't want to go in there.
Exactly. The barrier to entry is challenging now. It's a very challenging business to get into, right? Now, we just think of it as just, hey, you got the software, you're good to go. But it's just not that simple, right? And it's even harder now with the fact that soon enough, Uber's gonna have employees. Lyft's gonna have employees, right? On top of that, the problem that they have also is that their security is not as good as the taxi, right? Remember we had an issue probably a couple years back where Uber drivers are just losing their minds, where Uber drivers is kidnapping people, people getting into a car thinking it's Uber, and it's not an Uber, it's some guy pretending to be an Uber, and they take them, they kill them, and do whatever kind of crazy stuff. That tarnishes Uber's reputation, and also kind of inhibits people from wanting to work for Uber, right? It also prevents customers from wanting to take an Uber, right? Once that demand is gone, guess what? I don't need a bigger supply, right? If my consumers are gone, the people that patronize my business are gone, I don't need a big staff. I don't need all these people. I don't need a bunch of Uber drivers, right? And so that, again, decreases my requirement, decreases my recruiting role in what I'm gonna do for the future, right? Now, there's some countries that Uber try to get into and they got kicked out. Not working, okay? Mexico, funny enough, they have Uber drivers, but they're very like strict with them, okay? Canada, they have Uber drivers, they're all right, okay? Even here, if you go to Vegas, who's been to Vegas lately?
No,
Huh?
it's 4 5 years.
4 or 5 years? Who's been to Vegas too late, more recently? Did you take an Uber or did you drive? Or did you, okay. No? Okay. So the way Vegas does it is how many companies do it, right? They regulate it. And 4 or 5 years ago, I think they were still doing it, right? You cannot get an Uber on the street in Vegas. Now you just can't call an Uber on the strip and the Uber is gonna stop picking you up. Doesn't work that way. Now, if you're out in a residential area, yes, right, they'll come. But if you're on the strip specifically and at the airport, right, when you go to the airport, you want transportation, ground transportation, you gotta go do all this stuff. And you have to pick your Uber up right then and there, right, at the airport, okay? They will not pick you up from the street. If you want an Uber, you gotta go to a hotel and call the Uber from the hotel, and then they'll come pick you up at the Uber pickup for that particular hotel, right? It's very regulated. And I'm saying that because now that has an impact on if I have people coming in as far as people that want to drive, right? Because I don't want the Uber and Lyft to overwhelm my already pre-existing incumbent structure, which is there. Okay, and I'm talking about cabs, yellow cabs. Okay, yellow cabs have been around forever and a day. right? And they're the reason why there's so much regulation around Uber and Lyft. Because again, if you have Uber and Lyft, that's another option, right? And so now they can't necessarily be a monopoly. It's competition. And so this competition, you're taking money away from me now, right? And that hurts my recruiting efforts. Because if I'm a person, and say I'm gonna drive taxi, I'm gonna do transportation. And I look at the yellow cab, I look at Lyft, I look at Uber. The first thing I'm gonna look at is, what are the barriers to entry, right? How hard is it for me to get into the particular, whether company, right? And what do I need to give you, right? Anybody, well, probably not, what? So yellow cab, okay? The way yellow cab works for the most part, but if they work the same way like they do in New York, right? You have to have a, what they call a medallion. Okay? A medallion. Right? So the TLC is Taxi Limousine Commission. Right? This is in New York, right? I'm pretty sure they have one here too. They control all the transportation for the most part, like private transportation or entities like Uber, Lyft, and the taxis. Okay? And so if you want to drive a yellow cab, you have to pay into the system, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to have your own car, you want to have your own medallion, right? But most people can't afford the medallion because the medallion is $40,000, $50,000 up front. And so what you do is you kind of lease it, right? And so they regulate that. They make you go through a process and say, okay, hey, we're gonna give you the car, you drive it, and then but you need to bring it back at the end of the day, or every couple of days you need to bring the car back. So you can do maintenance on it, whatever the case may be, or drop it off, and then you take your personal car back home. All right. So I'm gonna look at all three and see which one's the easiest to get into. Uber and Lyft are the easiest thing to get into if you want to do that business, right? As compared to trying to get into a taxi, all right? Trying to get into TLC, the Taxi Limousine Commission. And so if I'm having an influx of people being recruited into Uber, recruited into Lyft, what does that do to the taxi industry, right? It diminishes it. It takes away their ability to make money, right? And if I don't have, again, the demand, guess what I don't need? I don't need to recruit. My staff is gonna get smaller and smaller. I'm gonna start to reduce, right? And just make the staff less and less, and you'll see less and less cabs. You don't see that many cabs around here in San Diego. You go to the airport, you'll see them, but they're like lined up, 4 or 5, and they're around, but you don't see them, right? It's not like in New York. New York is cab everywhere. But it's a very highly regulated industry, because they want to make sure they can control, Uber and Lyft and make sure they don't get too big and too crazy because it's so easy to get into, right? But once they start making the independent contractors employees, you're gonna see a huge reduction in force. You're gonna see Ubers getting harder to get, right? And then sometimes in certain places, it takes 25 minutes, 30 minutes to get an Uber, right? Depending where you're at. And it's not because there aren't any, there's just not enough, right? Even in Vegas, when you go there and you want to go from one place to the next, it takes 25 minutes. You got to call it before you come downstairs, right? Because it takes a while to get it because they just don't have enough to support what they're asking for. Okay. All right. So companies can do a combination of, a couple of things. All right. They can have a core group. They can have temporary. They can have independent contractors, and most companies do have that. Right. When I was at Toyota, and I didn't know this guy got to Toyota, and the guy said I was in a meeting, and they were talking about bonuses for the employees, for the core employees, and the way Toyota works, they do profit sharing at the end of the year, right? They do specifically right before Christmas, so you get a nice check, and you have a good holiday, right? Based on it. And so I said, okay, so I went to the meeting, and the bonuses that they had projected to pay out for that year was like $150 million, or something like that. It was a really big number. I said, man, that's a lot of money, right? And then I looked at the number, I saw the number of employees that we had. I was like, that makes no sense. whatsoever. Huh?
It's a small number.
It's a
after all.
small number, right? And that's what I found out, that 80% of Toyota are independent contractors. They're temporary workers. And I didn't know that. I was like, oh, that's how you guys operate. Like, yeah, that's how we operate. That's how we can have these high profit margins. That's how we, kind of move things around. We're very flexible, and that's how we stay kind of number one, number two as car manufacturers. Now, I happen to be a core employee, what part of the administration and staff and all that stuff, right? But a lot of people that I knew that I worked with all the time, they were all independent contractors. One day they were there, the next day they were gone. Okay, but so most of them have long-term contracts, but they come and go as they please, right? But again, there was a mix of folks at Toyota, right? And the mix would change all the time because it was, really molded or modified to fit where Toyota was going with certain things. Okay, when Toyota was more into trying to figure out, alternative methods of fuel or energy, they kind of got away from certain contractors. When we were trying to do different projects, and I know you guys don't see this, especially I know you guys don't see this particular car on the street, and I don't know if they're ever gonna put it out. I think they put it out. It's called a Mirai. Never everybody seen the Toyota Mirai before? Okay. It's kind, and you guys have seen the new BMW, right? Like the i8, and it had this kind of glass kind of look. Well, Toyota had that. That's what the Mirai looks like. It looks like this BMW with the glassy look and that kind of thing, right? But when they were developing that, we had a big influx of these really super duper kind of engineers and chemists and all these other guys that they hired on as independent contractors, just for a certain period of time as we were working on this stuff. Okay, we brought on, you might have seen the commercial. We brought on a couple of other guys that were doing hydrogen cell fuel or something like that. And they had this promo of a hoverboard. I don't know if you guys have seen this commercial. If you go to YouTube and you plug in Lexus or Toyota hoverboard, it'll come up. And it's literally a hoverboard that's powered by hydrogen that Toyota has developed. I don't know if it's ever gonna come out, but they have it, right? But the people that we recruited for that, right, were all independent contractors that work with the core workers, okay? The people that were gonna be there long term, right? And so they served their purpose and then they let them go, right? Well, they might still be there. I don't know how long, since I left Florida. I'm sure they're still working on the project, right? The point is that you can do any one of the mixes. You don't have to stick to, one particular thing, right? And most effective companies typically have a variety of different ways in which they source and recruit their folks, right? And their staff and how they build it, right? But it's really built for efficiency, it's built for being low cost, and it's built for, really long-term growth, but that's aligned with the objectives of the company. Okay? All right, I'm gonna stop here. Talk too much earlier today. Make sure, go in, review chapters 6 and 7, okay? And then, check your groups. Everybody should be good with your groups, reach out to each other. Everybody should be okay with that. Classifications, I got all those in. I think everybody got a grade, so we should be good on that. You get your quiz in, you get your LE in for the week, and that's it. We're week 4, halfway through. All right, so congratulations. All right, I'll see you guys next week.
Thank you, Professor. See you next week.
Next week, though.
By the way, can you give us more couple of days for the LA?
For what? For who?
For the LA?
For the LE?
Yeah.
Who's that?
My friend.
What do you need more days for?
It's really hard to do.
Oh, my goodness.
Really, trust me.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's not that hard.
No, it is.
Not that hard. You go home.
Thank you, Professor.
Yeah, I see you later.
How many time we spend on doing it? And he finished. Yeah, we was thinking about it, but nothing happened.
This is the essence of school. To have challenges and to overcome them. Okay? You gotta find. You gotta do it.
We have to set it aside.
Yeah, you gotta cite.
Aside what?
Cite when you cite the work.
Yeah, but we don't have anything on the internet of the world. Like,
Well, if it's something that says like, what's your opinion or somebody, no, you can always cite, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that if you have a topic like, hey, tell me about a time when you worked at some company. No, that's not citable. That's just.
Let's give us one day more, one more day.
Yeah, no. One more day. One more day. Get it in tonight. No, one more day.
Trust me, we tried, but one more day.
Tuesday, today, Wednesday. Good.
So I think we have.
You'll be all right.
Okay, we will try.
All right, good. That's all I want to hear. I'll try.
Thank you.
All right,
Yeah.
all right, later.
We're gonna just do it and then we're gonna show you whatever you want to add up and more and then. What's the number?